Alright guys, welcome to the Pig Daily, episode number 6. I am Pig, oink oink, and today we're going to be looking at it's going to actually be our first Protoss game. We're going to be looking at a game of Neeb versus Hydra. We're going to be looking at it almost all from Neeb's perspective. As always, we'll talk a little bit about, what could possibly counter this build. We are going to be looking at a Blink-Disruptor style. Now, we're not saying this is necessarily exactly what Neeb is going for every game. It is always partially reactive at his level, but it's something I would say up to an incredibly high level. You can pretty much just go Blink-Disruptor against Zerg every game and make it work very, very well. So I think it's a very good style. Its weakness would, of course, be just massive Zergling if you don't have anything to do with that. But you can always add in lots of Adepts or Zealots or Archons or something and, adjust your composition. But against all your Hydra-based compositions, all that sort of stuff, it's an absolutely amazing way to play. Personally, I love Disruptors. I know a lot of people don't like them as much, especially against Terran, but keep in mind, even on creep, Zerg units are not as fast as Stim Bio. You're not playing Maru, you're not playing the god of splitting, so I think Disruptors are actually an amazing unit, especially they're just so much fun to micro around. So we're going to be looking at this game, so let's dive on in and just walk through this replay. There we go. Alright. So this game was Neeb up here in the top left, going up against Hydra down here in the bottom right. This was game number 1. I'm pretty sure it was game number 1. It was one of their early games from DreamHack Tours. Now they played the week before this match. This match was played only about a week ago from when I'm doing this video. But yeah, they played a week before in the finals of Austin, DreamHack Austin, a week before that, and basically, Neeb, I think maybe fell apart under the pressure a little bit. He went down 4-2, 2 wins, 4 losses. But even in the final game, which he lost, like he kind of did this great little Void Ray swap against a Broodlord timing, shut it down decently. His economy was a bit bruised, and then he kind of just kept making Void Rays and counterattacked. And Hydra was a bit desperate and literally had just remaxed on pure Hydralisk. But even though Neeb had Storm, he, didn't make any more Templar, didn't have any Storm, pure Void Ray versus pure Hydralisk, didn't work out very well, just got crushed. But there were definitely opportunities for him to win that series. However, a week later, they rematched here at DreamHack Austin in the round of 16, and Neeb ended up coming out of this series with a 3-1 victory in a very decisive fashion. So I think it was interesting to see how the series played out. It definitely felt a lot like Hydra was grasping at straws, trying to find ways to beat Neeb, because Neeb is just such a rock. Solid as a rock. He seriously is like just one of the most nightmare players to play against as a Zerg, because he's so good defensively. He does still mix in aggression and some timing attacks, but he does so, very, not that often. And most of the time, he's just going to be macroing up, doing a bit of harassment, exerting his presence around the map, and generally being a pain in the ass. So I really like watching Neeb play, because it makes me feel like Protoss is utterly broken, because he just is that good. So very nice play from him. Let's talk about the build order. Now, if we just go back and talk about that quickly, he's going to be going Pylon and Gateway on the low ground. Really nice way to play, because this is so easy to wall off, just one more structure and something blocking. Even if there's like a 12 pool, you put your Cyber Core here, you put a Pylon there, and then once your Zealots come out, you can pull some probes down, cancel the Pylon, and you should be able to defend your gate and core, and you should still end up in a good position. Neeb's shown before, even going with the Gate Nexus, the same build he's about to do. So it's Gate, Gas, Nexus. Even with this build, he's gotten well ahead versus 12 pools on Prion Terraces that Hydra's executed before, so he feels very confident. So of course your standard, 13, 14 Pylon there. He's going to be going for a 16 gate, quite typical. Not the fastest gate, actually. So the gate is a little bit later, so that's something to pay attention to. Keep in mind, I'm pretty noob at Protoss, guys, so this episode's nowhere near the refinement. This is kind of me learning as we go along with you guys. But that gate, not super fast, and also then the gas goes down right on 1 minute. So that is an 18 gas right on 1 minute. Now, why get the gate and gas not as early? Like, he had money to build these structures before he put them down, so why not get them faster? The reason is he doesn't have any use for them faster. Because he's going for the Nexus, These are more like an insurance policy than anything else. The gate and gas are there so he can see what's going on. So he then comes down, puts down a 19 Nexus, the moment he has 400 minerals without interrupting probe production, and just before that he sends out a second probe to scout. Now this is not an exceptionally fast scout. I definitely feel like you guys as players can always just go for an early scout after you put your pylon or your gateway down if you are a bit more worried about, you know, what Zerg's going to be throwing your way. But he's just going to come on in, check what's going on. He sees, okay, I saw the hatchery, I saw the gas and the pool now. He also did see the drone go to the third, and he's just going to do a little bit of harassment here, denying that mining. Behind this, after the Nexus, the next thing you do, once again, without interrupting probe production, Cybernetics core, and then straight into that second gas. So he's just started mining this second gas, and it times out perfectly as well. So he's got 16 probes on minerals, 3 on gas, and the excess probes get on this gas, and just after it finishes, the next probe rallies onto that gas geyser. So you can just see Neeb here is like so focused on building his economy efficiently. And once you've got that 16 probes, he rallies down to his natural. And look at this, as the first probe arrives, the Nexus finishes. Like, at that exact moment, the scout comes home and starts mining as well. Neeb didn't confirm the third base because he saw the drone move down there. So at his level, he's just like, Matt, I know exactly what's happening. Here, Hydra does a cute move, running 2 Zerglings around the side of the map. But we actually see a Twilight Council going down. So a single Adept to go do some scouting, double check what's going on, make sure there's droning happening, there's not a crazy all-in going on. Gonna confirm the third base is finishing up, which he does. And the Stalker, unfortunately, going to get out a little bit late, and we are going to let the Zerglings in. The whole point of the Stalker is to deny an Overlord scout. Make sure any slow Overlord gets shut down, as well as provide a little bit of basic defense. But unfortunately, we are going to be seeing that that Resonating Glaives being spotted. Now this is still a relatively solid opening. On these small maps especially, Zerg has to really overcommit to defense to be safe. So, as much as we didn't want that to be spotted, Neeb's not too upset about it. Let's go back a little bit. Now, the timing on your tech structure with this build, yeah, 225. So this is like the fastest possible tech. Now, if you're ever worried about aggression, you need to delay this tech. Why do you need to delay this? Because you need that gas for your mothership core. So, with this opening, what we see is Neeb is saying, my probe scouts, my adept scouts, my stalker defends. If I just build my mothership core a little bit later on, I will still be fine. And that is being a bit greedy. It means he's not going to have as much pylon cannon energy. It means any weird, crazy, very early Zergling pressure, he's not going to have a mothership core for. But he decides he simply doesn't need it because he wants to get out the faster attack speed. And realistically, most Zerg attacks that are significant, all-in type, big, heavy attacks aren't going to hit until about 4 minutes. Now, he does try to dive in with this Adept, and Hydra actually gets right on top of it, so that was a pretty bad sacrifice. Didn't end up getting any more scouting information, and does lose that Adept. And that's a real shame, because Neeb, he knew Zergling speed was about to finish, so I think he was just keen to check there was no all-in going on. But usually, right around this time, you say 3 minutes 30 is the standard time that Ling speed kicks in for a hatch gas pool. So at about 6 seconds. So you drop those at about 310, 315. So as you naturally, so you can hang around out front, still try to annoy their third, but you send your shade home and you start just teleporting back as quickly as possible. Now behind this, we actually saw a very interesting follow-up from Neeb multiple times this series, where he doesn't have a Stargate, he doesn't have Phoenix yet. He's relying on putting heavy, heavy pressure and the threat of that pressure to stop Hydra from getting up to Mutalisks, just freely going up and building 10 meters. So notice he dropped 2 gateways here. The gateway takes, I think, 40 seconds, 46 seconds. So he dropped those at about 310, 315. So as you naturally get excess minerals after your tech comes down, about a minute after the tech building first started, as you're starting the Resonating Glaives, you start at 2 more gateways. And 3 gates is the normal solid core, which allows you to secure a third base and build a good amount of units for pressure. We see here, we've got 4 Adepts, the Stalker's still guarding the wall, and these 4 Adepts are going to be able to secure this third base. We're going to see a Nexus go down and a Pylon immediately. We are supply blocked a little bit, that is a bit of a shame. We preferably would have put the Pylon down a bit earlier. And as we warp in 3 more Adepts, we're going to go right across this map. So Neeb here, just showing a very crisp timing, hitting before 5 minutes with 7 Adepts with attack speed. But he's not just going to throw these away. So look at this. Let's watch from Neeb's camera. He sees a lot of Zerglings there, but that's it. There's no roaches. Now the roaches pop out just after he gets there, but he knew he was going to crush those Zerglings. He literally lost one Adept for about 12 Zerglings there, and then he does the very simple Adept harassment maneuver, which is send the shades into there while walking into here. And if too many units split back towards the shades, you just cancel the shades at the last second and just focus down drones in the main. So we see there, the roaches started turning around, so Neeb made the clutch decision to cancel, kills a bunch of Zerglings, picks off a few drones, and this is actually quite a good trade. It's not amazing, you might think, oh, he only killed 5 drones, he killed a lot of Zerglings. So it was quite decent. It wasn't amazing, but it was quite decent. There, picks off another 3 drones, but the good Queen focus fire from Hydra actually shoves the Warp Prism back. Now, keep in mind, he still killed 8 drones. He still took a decent trade. Let's imagine if Hydra didn't know the Robo was down from the friggin' very first moment, man. Like, it might have been able to get out of control. Because Hydra might have been like, okay, prepare for a wave of 6, 7, maybe 8 Adepts. And then, you know, do whatever you want. But unfortunately, a little bit sloppy from Neeb. I mean, he has the Stalker out, but he's just never checked that this Overlord is here. And if we go right back, this Overlord's been here, like forever. He saw it at the start of the game. And we're going to see that Overlord just like, yep, just move there, chill. So putting the Robo down at the front is nice because it allows you to reinforce Immortals out quickly. Protoss players really like having their Robos. You'll see Showtime always go double Robo at the third. But depending on how confident you are, you really might want to put it a little bit further back. Even putting the Robo there would not be the worst thing. Maybe just taking down those Destructibles and Destructible Pallet and putting it there. But you could also just put it in the main base. I think it just gives Hydra a lot of warning of exactly what he's going against, and it really does telegraph what he's going to be facing. So I think definitely something which you'd prefer to hide in Neeb's shoes. That being said, it's kind of funny because Neeb is one of these players who, because he is so solid, he kind of looks like he doesn't care when people see what he does. Keep in mind, this game, he's shown the Twilight Council, he let the Zerglings in, he's shown the Robo and the Warp Prism, and that's why it's so damn impressive that this still works. I'm sure we could criticize Hydra and say, you know, he should have reacted a little bit better to all of these pieces of information, but nonetheless, it is just a testament to the refinement of Neeb's build order. So he's going to come in with these Adepts, he does this aggression, gas timing. So he grabbed the gases at about 4 minutes 50 behind this on his natural. That's very interesting to note. He's starting up Immortal production behind the Warp Prism already as well. No Forge, no Blink, nothing like that just yet. Still has the Chrono Boost on the Twilight Council because everyone forgets to adjust that because the new Chrono Boost isn't actually that important. And pro gamers still make mistakes with it all the time. He's going to warp in a few sentries. Now this is very important. Sentries are becoming more and more useful, especially as we see just a lot of Zergs trying to get crazy aggressive. Force fields, even when Ravagers are out, are amazing for buying time and adjusting the positioning. And look at this calm defense here. A big wave of Zerglings comes in, no pylon cannon activated. Because he delayed that Mothership core so much, Neeb actually was like, I'm not wasting pylon cannons until the roaches get here. I'm just going to defend with the depths, and only now will he drop a pylon cannon, and just a single one, not two. Picking up his weaker depths as well to save them, just rejecting that attack entirely, and that did such a damn good job. Just to confirm as well, let's check, when did the Mothership core actually start? Notice there's still, the Mothership core only just popped at 4 minutes 30, which means he started that at about 4 minutes, so a very late Mothership core. But if you've got 3 gateways and Adept attack speed, you're going to be able to defend most timings very well anyway. Especially if you know your opponent took a third. There really aren't many options that hit before about 4 minutes 30 or so. So we're going to see Mothership core kicking in right about now. Yeah, 4 minutes. Okay. So fast forward, take a look at the build from here. So he's going to shut down the counter pressure. Alright. Now from here, notice just constant probe production. Pretty much the entire game we do have constant probe production from Neeb. But what's really important to being efficient, getting up to big powerful armies like Neeb is just how few units he uses to defend. Yes, he goes and does a 7 adept pressure, and does a lot with only 7 adepts, but it's always about doing a lot with a little, and that really is Protoss. You've got to build up your economy fast because all your units are so expensive. You can't just, you know, see a few roaches and zerglings coming across the map and panic and just put all your money into defense. You've got to keep probing in the midst of this. Unless you identify something that's actually like a dedicated all-in, you see something absolutely crazy coming your way, you basically just continue on your path. We see now the Forge has gone down, following up this at about 6 minutes 30. We see we're going to take the gases on the third only once we're fully saturated. So we wait till that third's fully saturated, big mineral focus, and then into the gases. We're adding Blink as well. And now we add the robotics bay. So we're not rushing towards that robotics bay. And we even do get a few immortals. Just off this one robo. So we're building a third immortal right now. 4 sentries, and now we're starting to invest in mostly blink stalkers. There's a few adepts mixed in because we need those to clear up any zerglings on the ground. They're generally a good meaty unit that sits in front of everything with 150 hit points for basically no gas cost, just 25 gas per adept. And now we're going to see Neeb start going for some cute pressure. So he's sending 1 adept around the north. He wants to see if a big attack's coming. He's going to go take the watchtower. These other adepts started zoning around the bottom. And this is a way of him beginning to exert map presence a little bit. So he's made a hallucinated phoenix. He's going to see some hydralisks coming. He knows with this adept as well, there's lurkers, there's hydras coming, and he's going to have to make a defense here with very few units. We see the second robotics coming down behind this. So he is going for 2 robo disruptors. His first disruptor is on the way, but all he's got for the most part is force fields and blink. So this is really important. He comes forward, focuses on the lurkers, and then pulls back. He's going to go in just with the immortals, focus down 1, 2, 3 lurkers, and then just pull out of there. Very nice patient play by Neeb. Keep in mind, what the Zerg wants is for you to just attack with your whole army into the lurkers, all the splash damage to be worth so much. If you can slow the Zerg down from getting in a position where he's actually attacking your base, that's great, because that means more time for you to warp in units, more time for you to get these units, more time to use blink, micro, barriers, all these sorts of things. And if the Zerg ever tries to force his way in, look at how the fight goes at this point. Because Neeb said, hey, I'm going to grab some of your high-value targets. Sorry, guys. Because I'm going to grab some of your high-value targets, because I'm going to kill those, suddenly Hydra's like, oh, screw you, man. You're just going to pick away at me if I stay here. So I've got to push in a bit harder. And Neeb suddenly has an opportunity to just cut off half the army with force fields. And he's going to blink on the top side. Yeah, seeing that there's just a few Hydras up there, he's going to blink up there, push those back, pulls his army back, and once again, he's like, okay, just keep waiting, just keep waiting. And now he's got his Disruptor here. He's going to get a nice shot there. Hydra realizes this is getting very nasty. A very ballsy blink forward from Neeb there. You don't necessarily have to do these crazy blink forwards. But we can see just how one-sided this fight is. Now, notice Neeb isn't just jumping on top. He probably could have just A-moved into this army from the start and overwhelmed it, but he might have lost his sentries doing it. He might have lost a lot of stalkers. Instead, if we look at that unit's loss tab, we start to see Neeb doing Protoss right. Losing only about, I mean, a bit over half of what Hydra's lost. So that's already a very good start to things. Neeb's feeling very good about it, and at this point it's just double disruptor production, +2 is on the way, and non-stop blink. Now how many gateways do we go up to on 3 bases? At this point we're on 8 gateways, but if you're not as confident in your macro as Neeb, you can always just get 10 gateways if you really want to, especially if you're going to go for a nice fast 4th base. Now keep in mind we're at 70 probes. This is something where you'll often see Puck in a messy PvZ stop at 55 probes, which is a way less investment into your economy, but it's actually not that much of a smaller economy. Now, the way Neeb's playing, he is 100% reliant on securing this 4th base. This is something which is so important for you to keep in mind, because right now, past 8 minutes, the main base runs out of half its mineral patches. So 66 probes is normally enough to fully saturate 3 bases. He's still only on 3 bases, but he's got 70 probes, and he's lost 8 spots here. So if we look around, we can see we've got, okay, an extra few probes there. Where the Where the hell are the rest of his probes? Okay, here they are. He's just pulled them off. I'm like, this mathematically doesn't make sense. There have to be more probes there. Okay, so he's already grabbing these probes, main-arting them out of his main, and sending them down to his 4th base to mine there. But if he can't secure the 4th, it's really bad for Protoss. So if you guys are ever in a messy game, don't just blindly be like, yeah, let's just keep probing nonstop. Because if he had just 16, just 16, just 8, that would be 32, 40 drones on minerals plus the 6 gases, which is, of course, 6 times 3, which is 18. So that would be 58 probes. So he could efficiently be mining off this 3-base economy from 8 minutes with just 58 probes and making full efficient use of everything. Only if you can unlock the fast 4th is it worth going past that 58, 55 probe count. Now we see Neeb doing something which is very important, which is pressure. Oh god. Oh my god. Oh. Oh. Which is pressuring the Zerg. Now, the reason it's really important to pressure with this style is you've got units that don't scale well and can be countered. So this is where we start to talk a little bit about why this style isn't just a sit back and derp about style and steadily add on other things. You can just defend, but you don't want to mass Blink Stalkers. You don't want to mass Disruptors. But what Neeb's saying is, I'm going to dictate the pace of this game. I will mass these units. Why is it bad to just mass them? Let's think about it from the Zerg perspective. Hydra's army sucks against this army. It is really bad. Roaches are useless against Disruptor armies because they don't deal enough damage, they're too chunky, they're too slow. What you want is light, fast, high damage units, or on the opposite side of the spectrum, units that are so big, like Ultralisks, that they absorb all of the Disruptor splash without the neighboring units taking damage, that also don't give a crap about taking, what is it, 100, what is the damage, 155? 145. Plus 55 to shields, of course. So, you know, it takes like 4 or 5 Disruptor shots to kill a single Ultralisk. You're like, yeah, we don't really care about that, man. That's fine. Ultras don't care. So, yeah, Roach Hydra just isn't that good. What would Zerg ideally have? Mass Ling Bane. Wrapping around this army. None of it kills Ling Bane. The Stalkers don't do enough damage. Yeah, they can blink away. Force fields can help. But the Disruptors will do nothing. You ever try to shoot Zerglings? They're going to be all spread in melee with your units. You're accidentally going to friendly fire your own units. You're only going to hit a few Zerglings each time because they naturally spread out to engage the army. So Zerglings are really fantastic. We see Hydra recognizing this. He's going melee, he's going a lot of Zerglings, but he knows he doesn't have enough to actually wrap around and destroy this army yet. He's stuck in defenders mode. What else can Protoss do to really invalidate this composition and actually make Roach Hydra effective again, especially Roach Hydra Lurker? Vipers. So if Protoss goes to Hive, suddenly gets 3 Vipers out. Suddenly, you've got a mass Blink Stalker army, 6 Disruptors, you get in a fight, his army's all balled up, you're like, lol, shoot a few Disruptor shots. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a giant tentacle comes out, grabs your ball, pulls it over, and your shot gets cancelled. Abduct, cancels your Disruptor shots, a few abducts on all your Disruptors, and suddenly you've got a Blink Stalker army on its own at some reasonably late point in the game, and you're useless. So it's very important to put pressure on and really use this composition while it's powerful. It's also really nice to start out with these Immortals because, well, if you open up with 1 or 2 Disruptors, they don't really do that much. You need enough army to actually do damage so that while your opponent's spreading their units, while they're dodging against the shots, your other units are doing damage. Otherwise, just having a few Disruptors, or even having a lot of Disruptors without support is really crap. So this is why Neeb, he always starts out with a few Immortals, this anchoring unit, which is always generally good in small fights, big fights, whenever, then swaps into the Disruptors. Now, if he did want to not play just pure Blink, pure Disruptor forever, I can imagine that he would want to be going towards, say, Storm and Tempests. Transitioning into a different type of, anti-ground splash damage, and Tempests to deal with like Broodlords and that sort of stuff as well. Basically playing the Mega Turtle game. Now, one of the big reasons you wouldn't want to do that here is we are on Frozen Temple. So, on Frozen Temple, if you think about it, his 4th base, I actually do like that he takes this 4th up here so he can be aggressive while defending his base. And that's very important. Because, like, what's he going to do? If he's turtling, he's just got this very defensive army. How can he defend here and up here? Part of his defense is exerting pressure. At the same time, counterattacks can run through the middle. If he takes a 5th down here, suddenly the Zerg can attack from so many different angles. He can attack from here, 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 here. There's just too many different directions a player can attack from. And that's why in all matchups, Frozen Temple is an aggressive map. It's a map where your bases are spread out to the center of the map. They're spread out away from your back corners. So as you get to 4 or 5 bases, it becomes an intensely aggressive map where if you're the one who's attacking, if you're forcing your opponent to react to you, you have tempo, you have all the ball, like the ball's in your court. You can do whatever you want with it. So this is why we see Neeb committing to just masses of Stalkers, masses of Disruptors. We go back to after he defended that attack, and he says, oh yeah, baby. I'm feeling good, baby. Oh yeah, do these balls make you randy? Oh yeah. I think that was meant to be Austin Powers. I don't even know, man. Basically, he's just going to defend. This actually is a big mistake this game, though. No cannons at all on this base. Not that many pylons. Like, a few gateways here to wall in would be nice, but I guess it makes sense, right? He doesn't want his production to be exposed. So that's actually another point we didn't talk about. Sorry, I'll go back just a little bit. When those lurkers pushed up, if you've got gateways in the way and you can't spread out your army and like engage however you want to, you're actually going to really struggle. So this is actually really cute. I do think, though, having maybe a cannon or an extra pylon or two would be really nice. I guess he's relying on the mothership core, but I do remember in this game there's a moment where Zerglings are going to run in there and kill all his probes while he's busy microing. So having a cannon like close in behind some pylons can always make your life a bit easier. But anyway, nonetheless. So let's look at this. He basically just pushes with Stalker Disruptor. Hydra threw away way too many units in that previous attack. Against this army, Zerg does not want to fight it front on. Now, keep in mind, Zerg can beat this army. If Zerg can come in from multiple angles and just A-move and surround it, they can win. But there's still force field in this army. And look at how Neeb engages. Neeb goes in and then pulls back. He shoots the Disruptor shot when the Zerg chases. Now, this is your basic clumping theory. I don't know what the hell we want to call it. We're going to call it clumping theory for now. Whenever you are using splash damage units in a game of StarCraft, they are always more effective when you are defending. The reason is, as units move forward, they clump up. Even if they're pre-spread out, as they move forward, they will always clump up. So if you force someone to chase you, their units are always going to clump up. It's going to make it very hard for them to keep it spread, and that's the best time to use splash damage. If he ever just goes forward in a ball, lets Hydra take down these rocks, come around from behind, come from this side, come from below the hatchery. Suddenly, where the hell is he going to shoot his Disruptors? There's going to be a perfect spread of units around him. They're all going to be already preformed in a battle line. But Neeb knows this, so he knows he's just going to push forward and pressure, and also he can make use of the siege power of the Disruptors. Shoots at the lurkers there, unfortunately does mess up his Disruptor control here. Which is why we can be a bit critical. Depending on the situation in game, it does, vary how you want to control your units. Let's take a look at his hotkeys, actually. Mothership core on 0. Now that's no doubt rebound, or I hope it's rebound to something on the left-hand side of the keyboard. We've got upgrade structures on 6. So that's Forge and Twilight Council. Let's actually put that on clickable. Yep, Forge and Twilight Council on 6. Robo's on 5. Gateway's on 4. Doesn't use... Yeah. So I'm pretty sure his Mothership Core's on W, because he hotkeys all his gateways on 4, which means he's not using the default warp gate hotkey, which means he's probably using that for 0, which is remapped onto W on his keyboard. We've got Blink Stalkers on 3. So what we've seen a lot from Neeb is he likes to blink forward, snipe down a lurker, blink forward onto a flank of Hydras and shut them down. His Nexi are on 2, and his entire army is on 1. So that's everything. Blink Stalkers, Sentries, what have you. Now his Disruptors don't have a special hotkey. Personally, I love to use Disruptors on a separate hotkey when I'm using this sort of army, but my Blink Micro does suffer for it. What we see from Neeb is he's prioritizing that Blink Micro, and he's saying when the fight starts, what he's going to do is he's going to manually control using control clicks or double clicks, depending on his own preference. Control clicks are normally a little bit better, in my opinion. So, whoops, what did they just do? All right, so we're going to watch this fight. We're going to watch it from his camera. And by the way, guys, if you ever are watching a replay and you've got something clicked on, but then you want to see what your player's clicking on, press the X down here next to the minimap. That's the clear selection button. So it's going to show in our bottom display bar exactly what he's selecting. So we can see the way he's tabbing through his hotkeys right now. Neeb is going, okay, robos, let's grab those probes from the main, send them to the 4th. Checks his adept on the watchtower. Look at the multitasking. He's always checking lots of different things. And what we're going to see here is mostly he's just A, moving his hotkey. He's then going to blink back hotkey number 3. So we're going to see he realizes there's lurkers in just a second, I think. Oh no, the lurkers aren't in position yet. Okay, so he's going to blink back. And then we see he clicks on that disruptor manually. He manually clicked on that. There was actually a misclick. So let me go back and look at that one more time. Just so you guys can actually see this is how he chooses to do it. There's lots of ways you can control. But look, he's going to accidentally misclick on an immortal. In just a moment, we can see it down here. And then he clicks on the disruptor. Fires the shot. He's microing the shot. Kills a whole bunch of stuff. And then he goes back to just controlling his army as a whole. Sees the attack coming. Throws down an adept warp in. And a mothership core. Of course, very important, something which I've been struggling with my Protoss off racing. Always make sure you have at least one pylon touching or very close to the nexus so you have that fast warp in point. Otherwise, if you accidentally do a slow warp in of adepts against a big link counterattack, that can lose you the game. So he's going to come back in and once again poke in, sees lurkers and he goes, oh, okay, I can see where those spikes are coming from. Fires 2 disruptor shots. Does throw down some force fields. Trying to pull back those immortals and disruptors. Unfortunately, a bunch of them get caught at the front. He says, "Okay, this is a bit messy. Let's pull just back out of range." Now, in terms of his observer, he doesn't have an observer with that army. He lost it, so he's building another one right now. But what's Neeb thinking about? All he's thinking about is just keeping the pressure up because he knows if he can get to like 6 disruptors and almost maxed with like blink stalkers and supporting units. There's nothing Hydra can do, not with the army he's chosen, not with the army he's using. Now we are going to see those Zerglings come down there. They're going to try and get on these probes, going to do some damage. The Mothership Core actually didn't move down to respond. He's choosing to move his own army back and these Stalkers. And he will end up dealing with that. At the same time, trying to shoot some defensive disruptor shots there. But as he hits about 6 disruptors, Roach Hydra will be so cost inefficient, as will Lurkers, that he can just laugh his ass off. Like, he will so easily destroy this game. And we're hitting that point now. But notice, he's never impatient. He never just YOLOs in. He just uses these shots. All he wants to do is create opportunities for those shots to do damage. Here we see that big multitasking error I talked about, where he reacted really slowly and lost 30 probes to a Zergling run by. That was really sloppy. But, ever patient, Neeb is slowly going to siege these Lurkers out using those disruptors. He's going to take his time. I think he definitely could benefit from putting those disruptors on a different hotkey. I don't think the Mothership Core is quite as important to have on a hotkey at this point in the game, but maybe he could customize one of these other hotkeys onto Tilde or something like that. Either way, what's the advantage of not having them on a hotkey? Look at just how good he is at manually shooting out individual shots, the occasional double shot. He's very good at doing it this way, so if he ever ends up in multi-pronged battles, he's not just relying on one hotkey. He can micro disruptors in separate areas without just kind of being stuck on doing it the one way that he's used to. So here he comes in, he's going to fire these disruptor shots, unfortunately walking his disruptors at the front to their death, being caught in a little bit of an awkward scenario, finally being forced to just engage. Notice he's very careful at microing his observer back, and only after most of the units are dead does he actually fully bring the observer in. This actually looks really bad for Neeb, but let's take stock of the game. I definitely think the last minute or so, Neeb started making a lot more mistakes, not noticing this base, and then when he did notice, his main army control suffered. You could tell he kind of felt a bit desperate there. But what's going on Hydra's side? Hydra only has 3 Lurkers, 4 Hydras, that's it. He has nothing else. He's got 18 Hydras on the way. What's he got? 1-1-1 upgrades, no hive, no infestation pit, no 5th base. His bases are mining out. They're starting to mine out. They're both on an equal base count. But even though there's a 30 worker lead, that 30 worker lead is not actually like that important when it comes down to it. Because, like we said before, if you're not taking new bases constantly in Legacy, your bases are running out of mining. So we've got the main base almost completely out of patches. We've got the natural. Half the workers aren't doing anything effectively. So realistically, it's only a small income lead that we see. As I say that. It's not that big an income lead, I should say, because Neeb actually hasn't transferred his workers over either. Though Neeb really needs to get on that. We see Neeb making quite a few mistakes in the latter stages of this game. Nonetheless, though, that's what Hydra's going to force out of you, mistakes. He's going to come in here, clean up these last couple of lurkers, accidentally blinks in and kills one of his own stalkers with the disruptor shot, but does end up taking it out. And once again, just sentries to buy a bit of time. Sentries are so good for just slowing the army down, allowing your disruptor shots to buy more time to recharge, more time to fire their shots. More disruptors on the way, building those 2 at a time, really prioritizing them, realizing he actually had 3 built up, going to start bringing those down. Finally transferring some workers, actually needs to transfer more than that. Yep, gonna get those down there now. And he is rebuilding his probes as well, because Neeb knows that it's just been Hydra Lurker so far. He's saying, look, if I can just rebuild my economy, I should be okay. He's probably gonna try and fire a zoning disruptor shot as soon as these other disruptors come. It's pure Hydra though, like we said. Hydras on their own, not good against disruptors. You want fast, light units, not slow units like Hydras. So a couple of very nice disruptor shots there. He's still got 1 alive. Notice he doesn't just throw them all out at once. Usually you only want to throw 1 at a time, occasionally 2 at a time. And he's just going to A-move in here, a couple of decent force fields, 1 good disruptor shot on the right-hand side, going to take out a couple Hydras. And just very calm, basic play from Neeb. Hydra's just kind of going, hey, I did all this damage, I need to try and kill you. It's clearly not working out, not doing enough damage. I do think Hydra would have had a better shot if instead with that attack, he built some Zerglings, counterattacked over here. We see Neeb actually was very patient leaving his mothership core up here, not bringing that down to help the defense, because he was prepared for that. But definitely if Hydra could find a way to multi-prong a little bit more rather than letting Neeb's small yet elite army focus on just the one location, Hydra may have had more of a chance. But Neeb here just being so patient, he put on the aggression and really raised the pace of the game, raised the tempo, simply by constantly pushing from this fast forward 4th base. Just using that base to both cover his advance and build his economy at the same time. So really nice play by Neeb. And in the end, he does actually just overwhelm Hydra. Just too many units coming in. I think it's just a really cool way to see the sentries, the stalkers, and all that doing so well. So there's a few key points we want to highlight, we want to go back and look at. Now, if you guys have any questions in chat, now is the time to shout them out. Use the @x5_pig tag so that it highlights it for me, so I don't have to go hunting through every single message and bit of chat. The number 1 point, which I'm very impressed by, well, I guess the first thing that we're impressed by is the fact that he has everything scouted early on and still manages to do decently with it. Now, let's think about something we haven't considered a lot, and that is Mutalisks. What if Hydra went Mutalisks after holding this Adept attack early in the game? He goes straight for Hydra Den. Hydra's on kind of a one-track mind. I mean, his name's Hydra, I get it, right? And there's an opportunity for a really lame pun here, but I'm not even going to take it, because I really am curious why he doesn't put a Spire down. If your opponent doesn't go for a Stargate opening, doesn't have any Phoenix, even if they just spot a Spire, they have to build 2 Stargates usually. They've got to kind of go for that. Maybe Hydra was saying, you know what, I know how Neeb plays this. If I don't just play Hydras, even if I make Mutas, he'll just make Blink Stalkers and overwhelm me. But I don't really think that makes that much sense. I think going for Mutas is perfect against the way Neeb's playing here. Notice Blink hasn't started yet. He doesn't have any Stalkers. He's still struggling to get this up. This attack here, I really like out of Hydra. I like him trying to go take a trade. I think Neeb minimizes damage pretty well, but trading some Zerglings for Adepts, keeping the pressure up, trying to slow down the macro of Neeb, that's always a good choice. But we could have a Spire finishing up very soon here, and if Hydra did that, even if he just went for a single squad of about 8 Mutalisks, he could shut down the Warp Prism. More importantly, he could fly around the edge of the map, get in there and start killing probes, and still go into Hydra Lurker behind that. I think we can clearly see though, Hydra was thinking to himself, I have a plan this game, I'm going to be going just for Hydras and Lurkers. I'm going to be going for Lurker Den before Hydra Den. This is a build that's worked a lot for me. It worked on Endion. I think I can make it work here. It worked on an Endion in the previous week. And I do think it's the wrong choice though, because I really do think Neeb's cut a big corner here with his playstyle. And maybe Hydra was just thinking, you know what, Neeb's going to automatically go Stargates and go Delayed Phoenix behind this Adept pressure. And this will be like the killing push against it. And you know what? I think Hydra's push would be amazing if Neeb went for those Phoenixes. But I don't think we saw any Overseer Scout to confirm. Let's take a look. Okay, he does. But he's already committed to his tech path, so it's too late at this point. His Overseer comes on through, he sees just Robo, Gateways, Forge, sees absolutely no sign of Stargate. And I do think maybe he was kicking himself for not going Mutalisks, because if Neeb has to add 2 Stargates, it's going to be a lot more awkward. Now let's also look at Neeb's scouting after that Adept Pressure earlier on. He has no idea what the tech is. He doesn't. All he knows is that there was Roachling, and he's going to start doing some hallucination scouts and that sort of stuff. So let's take a look. What is Neeb thinking in terms of preparing for that stuff? Definitely Blink can defend it, especially if he gets aggressive, but it'll make it exceptionally hard for him to both defend his bases and get a 4th base, especially against the follow-up Lurker Hydra pushes that will come. Now, at this point, this is the first moment where Neeb actually verifies, oh, there are Hydralisks out. Definitely no big fast wave of mutas coming. If there were, would he drop 2 Stargates? I think quite likely. Would he necessarily though? Maybe not. Maybe he's confident with Blink. Keep in mind, there's not that much dead space on this map. Mutas come in here, you can put Stalkers here, Stalkers here. Suddenly the mutas are kind of trapped. If your mutas come down here, likewise, Stalkers can kind of flank around and kind of trap them in a little bit. So even though I think mutas were the great tech choice, I think Neeb playing as somewhat kind of, I don't even care, I'm not even worried about it, I think that was actually a pretty good decision in this particular scenario. As always as well, guys, because I am very new to Protoss, please do shout out any suggestions, any corrections. If you guys think, hey, actually, I think you missed an important point here, shout those out as well. Okay, so that's one thing, where he's just like, wait a second, I don't even care about that. The other thing here is this defense, and really this defense I think was so incredible. That being said, there weren't a lot of Zerglings here, which made it a lot easier, and I actually... The way Hydra flanks around and pushes in here with so few units, like this is actually way too cavalier of Hydra. Let's take a look at Hydra's work account, by the way. He actually over-droned. If you want to push this incredibly fast timing, these drones don't serve a purpose. You don't need more than about 66, 68 drones, in my opinion. You're going to be transferring workers out of your main now anyway, because your main starts running out. See, these mineral patches are all almost empty. So I'm kind of a little bit confused about Hydra's push. He's only got, yeah, not that many units. His +1's almost done. His muscular augments is almost done. The thing is, I don't know if Hydra realizes, like, there's no Phoenix and this is just what we're facing, because he can't push in here. And I really do think this is where Hydra loses the game. Because these Stalkers come in, Neeb just is like, well, a couple Lurkers on their own, like, what the hell, man, I can deal with that. A couple Hydras and Roaches up there, that's it. And the thing is, they're so separated by this piece of terrain. And suddenly it's like, Neeb's just like, alright, I'm just going to kill your Lurkers. And Hydra's like, oh shit, I gotta save those, get in there, get in there. And this just gives Neeb an opportunity to just blink on top of these top guys that are kind of isolated, force field out the other half. And it's super awkward. As cool as it is to push in here, Neeb doesn't have a 4th on the way. I think all Hydra needed to achieve with the first wave of this push was saying to Neeb, you can't get a 4th base right now, you need to focus on defending. But we don't see any of, like, we don't see many of the expensive units of Neeb go down. He loses a Disruptor and almost loses an Immortal. But the Resources Lost tab just tells us the entire story. Keep in mind that in Legacy of the Void, Protoss usually has just as good an economy as Zerg, if they play like Neeb does. If they play an economic style, we see pretty much the same economy throughout the entire early stages. There's usually a point where the Protoss gets their 4th a little bit later, so that, you know, their economy has to catch up a little bit slower. But for the most part, it's the same economy. You can't trade that poorly. And that, I think, is really what gave Neeb all of the tempo he needed to then make this aggression so hard for Hydra to deal with. Because the moment you're on the defense against Disruptor Blink and you can't even afford to split off a decent chunk of units, all you've got is a few Zerglings, which are easily defended by a Mothership Core, easily defended by maybe a few Warpins, suddenly you're just in a dead position, you know. The fact that he killed a bunch of probes, almost broke Neeb's 4th, is a testament to Hydra's strength as a player. But we have to say two things. Neeb played an incredibly crisp, beautiful, efficient build, number one. Number two, Neeb cut a corner. He did not have any Phoenix. He did not have any response ready for mutas. But that was also a good way of playing the map and playing the opponent. Hydra, I think, definitely took a very bad attack on that fourth, not realizing how efficient Neeb had been, not realizing Neeb had cut that corner. And so we ended up seeing a situation here where Neeb got a lot of control and actually made a few mistakes with his micro. There, losing a few disruptors. Imagine if he was up at 6 disruptors. I mean, he's already got 3. He's lost 2 or 3. If he had 5 or 6 disruptors, like all meeting up down here in the next 20-30 seconds, this game would be absolutely crazy. As it is though, we see he starts to get a little bit distracted by these Zergling run-bys. They pick off a little bit. He's biding his time, he's waiting, trying to get more disruptors down here, but he's still only got 4 because of those ones he lost. Defending, and somehow Hydra finds a way to force this really good engagement. So definitely we can see that Neeb probably needed to be just a little bit more on top of his control. I've definitely seen him control the composition a little bit better in other games. I think his build order worked out great. As soon as he defended the attack, going to put pressure back on so that he knew he could just stay on Blink-Stalker Disruptor for a long time was a very good choice. But right now, for instance, he needs to be very careful. Just there, he fired 2 disruptor shots. Because he lost those earlier disruptors, yeah, he's got 6 disruptors, but how many active does he actually have in this army? That one's on cooldown. How many disruptors? He's got 4 here. It's bloody hard to see them all when they're all on top of each other. That one's on cooldown. That one's not on cooldown. So he's only got 1 shot that's cooldown right now. All the other shots are throwing him off quite a lot. He throws this Adept Warp in straight past, which is a really cute kind of scare tactic. Try to force the Zerg to panic a little bit. And Hydra here is on almost pure Lurker. Once again, not the best disruptor shots. Needs to be a little bit more crisp with these. Those are the disruptor shots he needs. But once again, letting some disruptors get caught up the front. 1 disruptor goes down. Fires another disruptor. Luckily, it didn't get focused down. Hydra could have focused that down before it went off. He's starting to throw these shots out, but because he wasted a few of them earlier on, and then he wastes those disruptors, this game gets so much harder than it needed to be. So definitely a few errors here from Neeb. Losing the economy behind it as well meant that this messy fight made the game a lot closer than it had to be. All in all though, it's very hard to micro against lurkers. It takes a lot of patience, a lot of skill, and Neeb did a spectacular job in the game overall. Alright, so from here it's just clean up duty. Just clean that up, try to rebuild those probes, keep getting your disruptor count back up. It's all about having enough disruptors to always have 1 shot at least on cooldown. As long as you've always got at least 1 shot, you can just kind of zone out Hydralisks. It's like a moving force field that kills things, basically. It pushes the Zerg back, and if it doesn't push them back, then their units just die. So, very nice play by Neeb. We see here, just still zoning, still kind of being brave and going up to the edge. Maybe being a little bit too brave there. He's going to lose a few Stalkers for his trouble. But as long as you keep building disruptors, and you've always got a few up, we see that their shots are just absolutely spectacular. Blink Stalkers and Adepts and Sentries get the job done. Notice he is warping in a lot of Adepts. Why did he warp in a lot of Adepts? Because past a certain count of Stalkers, you don't really need that many more. The Stalkers are there to micro forwards to add some range damage, but he doesn't want 60 Stalkers all bumbling around on top of each other. They're too big, they're too chunky, and they take way too much damage from Lurkers. Adepts are light units, they don't take as much damage from Lurkers, and they cost a hell of a lot less. Plus, they massacre Zerglings, they massacre Hydralisks. So he knows that after killing all the Lurkers of Hydra, he's going to be mostly on Hydraling for a little moment. He's not going to be able to go up to Lurkers for a while, so Adepts are going to make sure that any fast second wave of push is not going to be able to break through. 2 disruptor shots there, a bit unnecessary, but that's alright. And it does work out. GG's, well played. Alright guys, so that's about all I have to say for that game. I think it was a pretty good game. Obviously I don't have as much insight being a Protoss nub, so we're just going to answer questions to finish off the VOD. So what have we got? So let's scroll on up in chat, and we have Corwin says PiG. Not a question about the game, because I get it. I get it, man. Something else. Can you give us the name of the maps you voted for in TLMC? We vote for a lot of maps, so no, I can't. Has the results come out? I can't remember exactly how it works. Like, I think like the finalists go to Blizz and they choose them or something. But I mean, we actually choose a lot of the maps, like, and you don't necessarily just choose them. Like, we actually rank them and stuff, and then they kind of aggregate it. There's a complex system in place. But I mostly picked maps where I think the bases were like spread out quite a bit, and there's going to be like a lot of interaction. But like they're spread out a bit, but they're also not like incredibly abusive positions, because that's what I was going for. Buffbane says, do you think the presence of Blink Stalkers dissuaded Hydra from building mutas? So that's a very good question. I guess we did already talk about that quite a bit. I'm not 100% sure what was going on in Hydra's head. Definitely, I think the combination of Blink already being out, the dead space just being lacking, there being no areas for them to fly over on the edges and be safe, does make it a little bit harder. So I can understand why Hydra didn't go for it. And Iceman says, the daily was good. I'm a dirty Protoss. Okay, awesome. Thanks a lot. Okay, so True Edge does... Okay, last two questions. True Edge says, can you go over the responses to cutting corners, whether it's Robo, Twilight, or Stargate? That's a good question. So let's say our opponent skips Robo completely. Well, that means he's going to lack Immortals or Disruptors. Suddenly, Roaches are really good units. Roaches, not too bad against Blink Stalkers. So, like, yeah, Roachling is going to be great. Roaches... and what's the core of their army going to be? If it's not Immortals, it's got to just be Adepts, Charge-Lot, Stalkers. All those units which just aren't that good at dealing with your basic Roach Hydra. Even if they get, say, Templar out, if you add, like, Fungal, and you're good at spreading out your Roach Hydra, you can probably just overwhelm with, like, Roach Hydra very basic compositions. So the Robo really is what creates the core of the Protoss army, which allows Protoss players to... which allows Protoss players to really move forward. I just realized that donation bar is like a week old, so that's that's completely wrong. Yeah, so the Robo is the core. If they skip the Robo, they just don't have that strong a basic army. But what you've got to keep in mind, of course, is a sharp blink timing, or a bigger commitment to mass Phoenix or Void Rays or whatever weirdness they're doing. But really, Robo is the core of what Protoss normally go for in PvZ. So as a Protoss player, you probably want to be hitting a sharp timing or really surprising the Zerg and kind of hiding what you're doing if you're skipping that. Trudge also, so what if they skip Twilight? So let's say someone skips Twilight. Well, it means their basic gateway units are going to suck. So it really doesn't give them as much maneuverability. Their reinforced capabilities aren't as good. Adepts without attack speed, not going to be very useful except for tanking. Like once your armies get big, the Adepts just aren't going to kill enough units, even against Zerglings. Stalkers, without Blink, not going to be very maneuverable, not going to have any anti-muta capability. So if someone skips Twilight, it's going to end up in that sort of direction. And if someone skips Stargate, well, that's what we already talked about a lot today. You can go mutas as Zerg. So as the Protoss player, if you skip Stargate, you want to be very aggressive. If you skip Robo, usually you want to hide that for a while and then try to usually hit with a big attack of whether it's Charge-Lot Archon or Blink or something like that. Usually it's into a big attack before it gets too late in the game, before your opponent can get up a big, just standard basic army. If you skip Twilight, that's usually just not a thing. Twilight, you need to get more upgrades. Twilight, you need to make all your core basic gateway units better. So, I mean, skipping Twilight, you'd only do if you were maybe going for a Sky Toss, or if you were, I don't know, doing some crazy like Robo into Storm play, but even that doesn't make sense. Like, you've got to always have some cheap meaty units in front. Stalkers, whether it's Stalkers blinking back or Adepts, you've got to have something like that. And one last question from Zichikele. What's the advantage of this style versus the Immortal-based composition? That's a decent question there. Basically, the advantage of this over the Immortal-based composition is you get to blow up things with splash damage a lot better. Against lurker pushes, notice how you can just pick away at it. You can out-siege it. So it allows you to have the superior ranged army. The threat is if the opponent can get on top of you, can surround you, if you don't have any disruptor shots active. Whereas with the Immortal army, you're just like, oh yeah, come get on top of me, baby, like what the hell. But if lurkers get in a very annoying position, or there's just a big lurker attack, with immortal-based compositions, it's all about setting up a big flank, coming in from multiple sides, and swarming over them. You're basically playing a swarm style when you're playing the Charge or Immortal Archon style. But when you play Blink-Disruptor, it's much more of a ranged superior army that you keep in sort of a ball, you micro back and forth, and it's all about using those balls, shooting out those disruptor balls as a beautiful zoning tool. So I think that's the main differences. It comes down to your own preference, which style you play. I really love Disruptors. Their ability to just smash the crap out of lurkers, Hydras, is so damn powerful. So it's definitely one of my favorites. So thanks for the questions, guys. We'll finish up the episode there. Hopefully going to be improving my Protoss and Terran knowledge a lot over the coming weeks. So in a month or two's time, I'd like to be really proud looking back at a video and be like, I actually know what I'm talking about now. We're not just kind of going over a style and picking up important points as we go, but we're actually looking at it and saying, this is the definite direction of this style. This is like the definite path it's going down. These are the advantages, and I can be a lot more decisive. For the moment, though, we're still going to mix in some Protoss episodes. Soon enough, we'll add some Terran ones in, but it's very much a learning process for me as well as you guys. So always open to suggestions, pointing out things that I got wrong or anything like that. So don't forget to leave any comments or questions in the section below, like, subscribe, whatever. We'll be back tomorrow with another daily. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Goodbye and good night.